Hello YouTube and internets. Let's just recap where we're at. We've got all of the primary forms in, apart from the ears, and the vast majority of the secondary forms, so these smaller wrinkles, ridges and forms. I've blended most of them in. I've started putting in some of those muscles on the neck, this sternocleidomastoid. I've stretched it out a little bit. If I turn that off, a little easier to see this muscle here, just so I can start to integrate the head form and the torso form. It shouldn't look like your design is just a head stuck on a generic body. They do need to relate to each other. And so I am going to invent a bit of a different clavicle structure for this character as well. And remember, when you want to indicate these landmarks, whether they're muscles or bones under the skin, we want to make sure they don't look like sausages sitting on top. We do want to make sure that they are actually blended so they look like they're under the flesh, much like our clavicles look in real life. And so, as I mentioned, I am going to invent some anatomy here and probably sculpt a clavicle that's not 100% accurate in terms of human anatomy. I think I want to have more than just the one bone. I think I want to have another one that comes up like there. But again, just a reminder on how we blend those forms in so they look like they're sitting under the skin. Smooth it out a bit. The next video, where we're going to get into veins and lumps and bumps and wrinkles, I will show you how to use the 99% alcohol to really blend things in, to get rid of all these little tool marks. So again, you want it to be apparent but subtle. Another thing you'll notice is I have stuck on a kind of a generic ear that is at least it's about the right size and shape. It's obviously not sculpted at all and not blended in, but it's about the right size and shape. This allows me to, decide, do I want it, pinned back against the head? Do I want the lobe to stick out? Do I want this to stick out a little bit? So these kind of generic blanks, very similar to what we were doing early in the sculpt with the chin and the nose, just putting on some blocks. But it's very important to locate the ears accurately. And so I thought we'd spend a few minutes in this video discussing how we locate the ears on the form, how we sculpt a generic ear that you can customize later to fit with your character, and how the ears are attached. Those are all important components to root this thing in realistic anatomy. So one of the first marks I want to make is I want to go straight horizontal from the corner of the eye. So that's about here. Almost straight horizontal. And we know that that's where the top of the ear attaches. We also know, looking at some of our reference, that the ear lobe typically sits somewhere between the lips and the bottom of the nose. Again, lots of variety in that, depending on the shape of the individual's ears, but we can put a mark there to locate it. Something else that varies from person to person is the angle of the ear. Most ears sit back like this, but there can be some variation. The other mark that we want to make is we want to locate kind of where the back of the ear. Common problem in drawing that we see when we're first learning to draw the portrait is we tend to push the ear way too far forward. And the reason that happens is we want to get all the fun stuff close together, but there's actually significant space between the ear and the eye. There's a lot of cheek here with kind of nothing going on, which is why we tend visually to want to push it forward. But how we locate that accurately is we take the measurement from the corner of the eye to the chin, okay? And that on a human without a giant cranium, that's about the halfway point, our eye level. So I'm lining that up. And then from the corner of the eye back here, that same measurement. So from here to here is the same as from here to here. And that's my mark for the kind of the back of the ear. So that ear can sit kind of like that. Okay, let's take a minute and check that out on a human model. So if we have a quick look at our life-size head cast, we can check those same measurements and locations. So you'll notice the first thing is this head is tilted slightly upwards. If you just look at the chin and the direction of all of these lines, that head is pointed slightly upwards, where our little sculpture is pointed down. So just keep that in mind, and you'll see that this is why glasses work so well in their current design, is really straight back from the corner of the eye. That's where the top of the ear is. And in this case, the bottom of that lobe is kind of level with the top lip, okay? And again, if we were to measure kind of chin, bottom of the chin to the corner of the eye with where that black mark is, and then we go corner of the, this is about where the actual corner of the eye, like where the eyelids meet. Yeah, about there. So pretty accurate that is the back of the ear. So the measurements that we did, straight back here, take this distance, the distance from the corner of the eye to the chin, corner of the eye, back of the ear, those are equal. That helps us just map that ear in the right location on the model. Now, what you do with the ear after that, you can make it pointed or round as your character design dictates. The other important thing to note about the ears is how they attach. So it's really important to remember that on the front side, the ear blends in. So the ear doesn't look just stuck on. You can see right in here, it just blends right in with the cheek here, okay? It hangs free on the top. Right, we can get something behind it. You can get the arm of your glasses behind it. Some earlobes are attached, some are a little bit free hanging. Other thing that's important to note is how the ears are attached in the back. So again, the shape of this can really vary. Some people's ears tend to sit a little flatter against their head, some kind of stick out, but it's very rare that the ears are right flat to the head. So you can do a really good job of sculpting your ears, but if you paste it just flat to the head, it just doesn't look believable. That side is maybe a little easier to see. So you can see this shape here that actually holds that ear out again, and then blended in here. Okay, the other thing to note is how complex the human ear is. There's lots of folds, and there's lots of positive and negative spaces. This is the most flexible cartilage we have. That's why you can crush your ear up and fold it up, and it just springs back to its original shape. This is just a remnant of the earplug I had in for the casting. But it's really complex, and it can be a little bit intimidating when you start to sculpt. And so this reference in the back, it's kind of just like a vector drawing. It's relatively accurate, but it simplifies the shape a little bit. And often I will look at not only anatomical references, but also some drawings, some accurate drawings, because it tends to simplify that shape a little bit. So now what we'll do is we will just spend a couple minutes sculpting a generic ear that you can use as a starting point for your character's ears. Our generic ear illustration does give us a pretty good indication on how to proceed. So we want to think about the general shape first, and then this big indentation, and then this more complex indentation. Remembering that the actual ear canal, the part that goes right into your skull, is down here. I'm not going to worry about that until I get my ear attached to the sculpture. So if we take a little block of clay, I'm just going to leave that there as a bit of a support, and then start with a ball. Again, this is just a generic shape. Roll it out into that kind of bean shape. And I'm just going to flatten it out and shape it somewhat. I don't want to make it too thin though, which I just did. If I make it too thin, I don't have as much ability to sculpt the shape, the depth that I need. So I'm going to pull that lobe out a little bit, that bottom lobe. So step one, start with the general shape. So I'm just going to rest that on that other piece of clay, more for support. So the first shape I want to look at is this one here. So if I just kind of rough it in, and I really like the ball stylus tools for this, but popsicle stick, anything will work. And you want to shape it gradually. So I'm just going over and over this area, shaping that outer ridge. Now, a good instructor would be telling you all the different names of parts of the ear. I am super rusty on that, so I'm not even going to try. And I keep using one finger to keep that shape. Okay, so we've got that first shape. Then we have this we've got the ridge of cartilage and skin that stays raised here, and then this other shape here that's a little more complex. And so I'm going to start with a smaller tool. I'm going to leave that ridge raised, and then it comes around more like this. And try not to go too deep at one time. And that does kind of blend in there. Okay, so here is where it would actually start to go into the skull. So I don't want to go too deep on that yet. I've lost because I've been pressing on it, of course it's stuck to this, which I knew it would be, but I'm just going to peel that off a little bit and peel the lobe up. So this block represents the skull of your character. I'm going to shape that. I'm actually going to start to blend some of that in as well, so I understand how it sits. Turn my reference around too. Okay, so we're starting to get something. So even in a few short minutes, we have a basic structure. And again, depending on your reference, if you're doing an actual portrait, then you really want to study your model's ear, because there's lots of variation in size and shape and the complexity. And always refining it. I probably would need to put a little bit more material on that bottom lobe. It's a little bit thin. I probably wouldn't go too much further for now. So I am going to build that ear on my character to about this point. I'll put in some of the details later. Going back to that idea of how the ear is actually attached. That's giving me lots of separation between the side of the head and the ear. So you can see it's actually sitting out. And then once your once you're kind of happy with the placement, then you can, you know, sculpt it a little bit finer. You do have to be careful because it is the perfect spot to accidentally grab and ruin a bunch of work. Okay, so there's quick and dirty getting your ears up and running. So much like everything else, you start with the primary shape. It's better to have it a little thicker than you think you want it. I'm probably a little bit thinner than I want to be. I would probably realistically scrap this ear and start over if I needed it at this scale with more material. And then start shaping in those, right, those two big shapes. This one, and then this more complex one, leaving this ridge of cartilage and material here. And then once it's finally on your piece, if you want to dig, you know, that ear canal out deeper, that's when you can. All right, hope you're all doing well, staying safe. See you soon.